of the Committee on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship is hereby called to order. May I ask the committee secretary to acknowledge our guests and resource persons attending today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We would like to acknowledge the presence of the following resource persons from the DTI E-Commerce Bureau, Attorney Marcos N. Valdez II, as well as Mr. Bonifacio Antolin. From the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, we have Attorney Roel S. Barba, their Director General, together with his Deputy Director General, Attorney Nathaniel Arevalo, Division Chief, Ms. Maria Katrina D. Rivera, and Ms. Christine Pangilinan Canlapan, Director 3, Bureau of Legal Affairs, Ms. Marlita Dagsa, IP Rights Specialist 5. Also, Mr. Jude Martin Hoya, Intellectual Property Rights Specialist, and Ms. Reggie Andy Pamatian, Intellectual Property Rights Specialist 4. From the DOJ, would like to recognize the presence of Attorney Normina Hadjula Tadifa, their State Counsel 2. From the Bureau of Customs, Mr. Paul Oliver N. Pakunayen, Acting Chief, IFPRD, and Mr. Antonio Ailemer Persela, Member, IPRD. From the DICT, the Department of Information and Communications Technology, we have Ms. Hazel Bianca Ortega, their Planning Officer 3, who will be with us online. From the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center, CICC, we have Attorney Frances Nicola Mendez, Attorney 4, and Attorney Diana May Cabrales, Attorney 4. From the National Telecommunications Commission, we have Attorney Andres D. Castelar Jr., their Director, as well as Engineer Jesus Lee, their Engineer 5. From the Optical Media Board, they will be represented by their Enopia, Enforcement and Investigation Division, Miss Enopia, Enforcement and Investigation Division, and Miss Coronel, Registration and Licensing Division, who will be with us online. From the PNP, we have Police Colonel Bernard Lau, Police Major General Darwin Julian, Police Captain Mervan Kali Beltehar, Police Colonel Robert Bongayon, Police Captain Edwin Apala, Police Major Sonny Galicia, and Police Captain Vanessa Mendoza. From the Bureau of Internal Revenue, we have Attorney Kenneth Bacurio, Attorney 3, Attorney Tobias Gavin Arcilia, Attorney 2. From the Office of the Special Envoy for Transnational Crimes, we have Ms. Mary Ann Male, their Head TNC Desk PCTC. From Globe Telecom, we have Attorney Ariel Tubayan, Vice President for Legal Policy, and also Mr. Carlos Santos, Senior Director for Corporate Communications. For Chroma Entertainment, we have Attorney Jane Delgado, their Chief Legal Officer and Data Privacy Officer. From GMA Network, we have Ms. Christine Cherry Flor Cruz, as well as Attorney Alan Rafael, their Legal Counsel. From Asia Video Industry Association, we have Mr. Matthew Sheetam, their General Manager of the Coalition Against Piracy, who will be with us online. From Citizens Watch Philippines, we have Mr. Orlando Oxales. And from Stratbase, we have Mr. Miguel Huang. From International Federation of Phonographic Industry, Motion Pictures Association, we have Attorney Mayumi Matsumura, representative of Romulo Law Office. From Smart Communications, we have Attorney Kenneth Regañon, Senior Manager Regulatory Affairs, and Attorney Gilbert Bautista and Mr. Kent D. Avestruz. From Dito Community, we also have Attorney Eleazar B. Hurtado, their Regulatory Officer. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. For today's hearing, this committee will discuss the following legislative measures on amending RA number 8293, the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines, with site blocking provisions, namely Senate Bill number 2150 filed by Senator Jingoy Estrada, Senate Bill number 2385 filed by Senator Ramon Bong Revilla Jr., Senate Bill number 2326 filed by Senate President Pro Tempore Lauren Legarda, and Senate Bill number 2645 filed by this representation and taking into consideration House Bill number 7600 filed by Representative Joey Salceda et al. Um, Please allow me to make specific House rules to ensure the orderly and efficient conduct of the hearing. Can the committee secretary inform today's attendees of the House rules, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For our House rules, kindly mute your microphone if you are not recognized. Since the Chair cannot see everyone at once, feel free to get his attention by specifying your name and that you have something to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let me take this opportunity to extend my sincerest thanks to our stakeholders from the public and private sectors who were also present during the consultative meeting last April 18. It was a very productive and insightful discussion which will greatly help us in crafting this important piece of legislation. In the age of digitalization, regulation of different forms of digital property is of utmost importance to ensure that rights remain protected. The Philippine digital economy is valued at $17 billion in 2021 and is projected to expand to $40 billion by 2025. This manifests a changing economic landscape leaning towards digital products and services. As such, it goes to say that as the future digitalizes, we must keep up with these dynamic changes. The vast digital ecosystem merits regulation that addresses as many concerns as we could grasp our hands on, one of which is copyrights. Copyright-related industries in the country comprise around 7.1% of our gross domestic product. Being digital nomads, one aspect of the industry we are most familiar with are streaming and online content sites. While there are a myriad of legal streaming sites available in the country, it cannot be denied that illegal sites still proliferate, amplifying online content piracy. A study by Media Partners Asia reveals that online content piracy during the start of the pandemic and lockdowns were at $1 billion potential revenue losses to local video producers, distributors, and aggregators. The Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines report on counterfeiting and piracy activities shows that in 2020 alone, there is an obviously striking surge for these illegal activities, which surpassed the number of reports and complaints received from 2016 to 2020. There is a 40% surge in alleged piracy for movies and shows, 25% for ebooks, and 16% for software products. A study also revealed that more than 60% of Filipino consumers watched pirated content, which is the highest in Southeast Asia. These numbers are very concerning as the losses outweigh the supposed benefit of providing entertainment. As such, we are hearing today the amendment to the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines to discuss the salient points needed to be refined to match the contemporary changes in the industry. The bills on hand are aiming to empower the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines to disable access to sites which infringe or facilitate copyright infringement and introduce procedures for preventive action and site blocking. We have our resource persons from different private and government sectors to help us in identifying valid points that need to be refined in consideration of providing heightened powers to the IPO Phil in terms of regulating illegal sites that violate copyrights. Before I end, I would like to encourage everyone here, even the Filipino people watching us from everywhere, to practice sustainable and legal streaming in support of our creative industries. Are there any comments or presentations from our resource persons? We may start with the AVIA, the AV presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Just a confirmation that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, everybody. My name is Matthew Cheatham. I am the General Manager of the Coalition Against Piracy, which is the enforcement body of the AVIA Industry Association. AVIA represents a number of local and international members, including Globe locally, and then the likes of Disney, Warner Brothers, the Premier League, NBA on a global basis. What I thought that I would do today is sort of take you through some of the research that AVIA has done over recent years that shows tries to put things in perspective, gives an indication of the need for something to be done in the Philippines, preferably via site blocking, and also some of the impacts that can be done, that can be shown from when site blocking is implemented effectively. Can I have the next slide, please? So first of all, one thing that AVIA does every year is we take a consumer survey from 8 countries around the region. These are 8 of our priority countries. The survey is undertaken by YouGov. YouGov is a well-respected and well-recognised consumer survey body. We ask a series of questions of consumers around the region in respect of piracy, their attitudes to piracy, how they pirate, what they pirate, how long they pirate, etc., etc. And from this, what we've seen is we do this, I should say, every year, and we've now got 3 years of consecutive data together. And what we've seen is sort of across the board, but particularly in some countries, notably the Philippines and in Vietnam, we have seen increases in piracy. The good news is Philippines is second as opposed to being first as it was last year. However, it is slightly misleading in that it's only 1% below, which is within the margin of error. Next slide, please. One of the other things that it's very, very helpful for us to find out when we're looking at what is the nature of piracy and how much are people pirating. There's this kind of good news and there's bad news here. So 20% of people in the Philippines are not pirating. Another 35% are not pirating that much. But then you see 26 and then 15 and then 5 are pirating on a relatively high level as far as we are concerned. We always see what we see up the very top, that 5% of very, very hardcore pirates sort of across pretty much every market. Next slide, please. And this is the real impact. This question, if you can see in the fine print down in the bottom there, and we asked Philippine consumers, in the last 12 months, have you cancelled any of the following subscription services as a direct result of accessing pirate services? And you'll see that 23% ceased or stopped a subscription to an international streaming service such as Netflix. 12% stopped subscription to a local paid streaming service. And then we've also got the entire TV subscription has been taken away, or potentially just a little part of the subscription has been taken away. Again, as a direct result of accessing pirate services. Next slide, please. This comes against the background, we're consistently told, and we have been for many years, that it's just too expensive. And that, you know, I would pay if it wasn't so expensive, I would pay. We asked sort of what we call as a utopia question. And the utopia question for us was, if there was absolutely no piracy, would you be prepared to pay for content? And as you can see, the vast majority in the Philippines, 75% of people said, yes, they would pay for some form of legitimate content if there was no pirate content available. So again, this to us really shows the reality that if there is no piracy, if we were able to get to that utopia, people are actually prepared to pay. What that means is people value the content. Next slide, please. This is another thing which we've found perhaps not surprising, but certainly very, very helpful. When we first started working in this area some years ago, there was a lot of perception in pretty much every country across the board that there wasn't any real negative consequence to piracy. It was, as many people used to say, a victimless crime. But however, as we've seen in every country across the region, that's simply not the case. In every country across the region, there is a very high awareness that piracy does have negative consequences for each individual market. Next slide, please. And so what we've got here is sort of, we broke down, so okay, there are negative consequences. What are those negative consequences? And as you can see in the Philippines, there's a high awareness that online piracy results in people making profit from content which is not theirs, i.e. there's high levels of criminal involvement behind the pirate scenes. And that's actually what we see a lot happening with a lot of pirate services. If it's free, then the user is the product. So if a consumer is going to pirate content in the mistaken belief that they're getting something free, and I'll show you this later on, more often than not, they are the product. The pirate service is run by criminals as a honeypot to attract users who can then be mined or infected with various types of malware and viruses, et cetera. And then the other thing, and that sort of leads into our concern just down there on the third one down, online piracy increases the risk of malware and viruses. This is a real concern and a growing concern from pretty much all sorts of piracy services. As I said, they're run by criminals. Next slide, please. So some of that malware research that we've looked at, if we look at the one, I guess it's on your right, the malware report with the little guy in the hoodie there. We ran some consumer survey, some research a few years ago with a very well-known researcher in this area, Dr. Paul Waters, and he found that within 42 seconds of accessing content on a Windows device, the average user was infected with some form of suspicious content, be it malware, virusware, or some form of data mining. We then ran another study with Dr. Waters last year, specifically looking into the potential consumer risks from piracy in the Philippines. And as you can see, consumers that went to a streaming pirate site, were 21.6, 1 in 5 more chances, more likely to be infected from pirate streaming sites, and slightly lower, 16.66, likely to be infected of some form of malware, viruses, et cetera, from a BitTorrent site. Next slide, please. Okay, so just having a look at blocking in particular. Blocking is something that I've been sort of running a lot around the region for a number of years. CAP and AVIA, we make blocking referrals in Singapore, in Malaysia, and in Indonesia. We're also closely involved with the blocking program in Vietnam. And here are sort of some of the distilled key points when it comes to Site Blocking 101. What are the basics? What are the building blocks to put in place a good, effective, and efficient site blocking regime? The format needs to be agreed between the ISPs and whichever body is administering the blocking, so that the rights holders know what kind of evidence, what kind of attestation of proof of ownership of rights they need to provide, the burden of proof. Then the next 2, 3, and 4 are really, really important. Speed. The sites need to be blocked ideally within a matter of days. With live sport, ideally it's going to be blocked within the 90 minutes of a football game, or slightly longer for a baseball game or a basketball game. But it really does need to be blocked quickly. One interesting thing is that the vast majority of sites that we are seeing that are pirate in the Philippines are not locally born. That means they're not operated from the Philippines. So what that means is that the blocking in the Philippines doesn't need to be as urgent as it might be in other countries, because the fact that the site is blocked in the Philippines may be of no consequence to the operator who's located in Ukraine or Bangladesh or wherever they may be. So a blocking system that sees sites blocked within a matter of days would be really effective in the Philippines. Volume is another important factor, and this is something that you'll see when I show you the impact of blocking later on in different countries. You really do need to be able to block at a high level as often as you possibly can. And just so you know, in in Vietnam, they are now moving to block within every 30 minutes. This is a regulatory form of blocking, as opposed to they were blocking sort of every 2 to 3 days. In Malaysia, I make referrals about every 4 to 6 weeks, and the sites are blocked within about 2 to 4 days within that. In Indonesia, I'll block probably I'll make referrals for a few hundred sites every month, and those are generally blocked within about 24 hours. In Singapore, it's a bit trickier. It's a judicial system, and it takes longer, and we generally take 1 or 2 actions a year in Singapore. And then we have costs and technical measures and dynamic, the importance of being able to act quickly. And if it's regulatory, acting quickly is sort of being able to dynamically block. That means if you block a site and then it moves, to be able to block that again relatively quickly, ideally within a matter of days. Next slide, please. What one of the other things that AVIA and CAP do is that we measure traffic, and in particular pirate traffic, around the Asia Pacific region, including in the Philippines. Now, this data is from a few years ago, but the reason that I'm showing you this data from a few years ago is because it captures the impact when we started blocking in Indonesia at a very, very high level in the middle of 2019, or slightly towards the end of it. Next slide, please. So what that blue line is tracking is the pirate traffic in Indonesia from when we started blocking. And as I said, we were blocking on a very regular basis. It was called a rolling blocking program. And you can see that the number of per million views or reached sites that were reached, pirate sites, went from 437 million down to 118. So we had about a 75% reduction in the 2-year period. And as you can see, in particular, when we started very high level blocking at the start, it dropped dramatically from about September through to November the year after. That's the effect of sort of putting in place those site blocking 101 principles, and in particular, the ability to block regularly at high speed and at high volume. Next slide, please. And this is my final slide, and this is, I think, where it's helpful to look at. This is all about the impact on the industry. And so what we are seeing here is the black line is representative of the sites that were blocked, that previous slide that I showed you. The red line represents the traffic of all pirate sites that we were tracking. We were not able to block all pirate sites. However, because we were blocking at such a high level of pirate sites, what we tend to find is that consumers, after 2 or 3 tries, give up, and they will stop going after the pirate content. So if you're able to block at a high volume and very regularly, you have a massive impact on the overall levels of piracy in a country. And then finally, the one that we really like, because this is what this is all about, is the blue line. So the blue line is tracking traffic in Indonesia to legitimate sites. And as you can see, almost in a pure correlation, the greater and the more that we blocked the pirate sites, the greater the impact and the increase in traffic to the legitimate sites. Thank you very much. I think that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank
I'm
you
happy to answer any
resource
questions.
Yes, thank you to our research speaker from AVIA. Before we proceed, I would like to suspend this hearing for 1 minute. Hearing suspended. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Francis Tolentino. Thank you for joining us. And with that, I'd like to declare the presence of a quorum. So at this point, I'd like to present some. I'd like to ask first. So hearing and at this point, if there are no other government agencies are there any other government agencies that would like to present something? Having none, I would just like to ask some questions to the perhaps to the AVIA. Are you still there? The AVIA.
Yes.
Yes, hello, Mr. Cheetham. Yes, thank you. I'd just like to ask, what are the of course, we saw the very encouraging trend of how the site, the traffic to the pirated sites was reduced significantly in Indonesia, and how it increased the sites, the traffic to the legitimate sites. What are the economic? I mean, do you have any quantifiable statistics on the economic benefits of such a strong policy with a strong takedown, with the strong takedown powers given to the government?
I wish I did, but unfortunately, measuring the economics impact overall is something that we've been unable to do so far. The best thing that we have is that blue line that I showed you, which is the uptick in traffic to the legitimate sites.
Well, I guess I suppose the more, of course, these legitimate sites, they being a part of uh, the the online industry, they pay taxes, etc. So I guess these are the benefits that we can see, although no specific statistics yet. Maybe perhaps, sir, in the future, these statistics would be also be helpful to us as we try to quantify the benefits also in terms of how it would contribute to our economy. Just for the just so for the information of the committee, that might be helpful. But I'd also like to ask at this point the if the ICT, what is our capability in terms of this? Do we have the capability technology wise to institute this? Even assuming we pass the law and we give them the power to take down, what kind of abilities, what kind of technologies, what are our capabilities in terms of applying the takedown powers? Perhaps if not the ICT, perhaps IPOFIL would like to chime in, or the NTC. Yes, please proceed.
Can I
Yes.
interject for a just one question before I transfer to another meeting? I think the counsel, the attorney to the extreme right side is from the Department of Justice. Yes, just one question. Would the quote unquote taking down of something posted be done in an arbitrary manner without any procedural due process violations, or can the law provide for a pre taking down notice that would enable the regulator to comply with such requirement? Can it be done? Para klaro lang, for the record.
Good morning, Senator. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Senator Tolentino. Sir, so far, as far as I know, there should be a court order for any takedown to happen. So if there is no court order, there will be no takedown that will take place.
Cases would be what?
What we have now is the cybercrime, implementing rules on the cybercrime law.
Which states that
I am not particular with the specific provision, sir, but what we, because I'm part of the legal staff, so we are not really
can it
familiar
be
with the-
delegated to another regulatory agency? Or can a new law be enacted that would enable another regulatory agency to issue said order without going to court?
I think there's I believe there's an instance, sir, where there is a memorandum of understanding that took on-site blocking between I'm not familiar with the parties, but in an article,
There
yes.
is an instance.
There is an instance, sir. Yes.
So your answer would be, it can be done.
Yes, sir. But in terms of cybercrime, sir, there will be a different
In
treatment
terms
on
of
takedown.
cybercrime,
When we are talking about Cybercrime Prevention Act, sir, there is a separate takedown
but you
measure.
just said a while ago that it can be done.
Yes, sir. But
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Senator Tolentino. And perhaps you can submit also a position paper to answer more extensively the query of the good
yes,
senator.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. At para po sa hypophil, gaano po ba kalaki ang epekto ng digital piracy sa atin mga creative industries?
Yes. Hello. Good morning po, Mr. Chair. There was a study conducted by media partners in 2023. Ito pa lang po, video lang, no? Na in 2022, there were 20 million Filipinos who download from illegal sites, and the loss was $781 million, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Dito po sa Pilipinas.
Yes, Mr. Chair. And if nothing will be done, by 2027, it will increase the illegal users will increase to 31 million, and leakage will be US $1 billion. Hindi po kasama yung taxes.
Di
Your
pa po.
Honor.
Sa revenues po, gaano kalaki kaya ang revenues na nawawala sa gobyerno dahil sa piracy?
Yun lang, sir, yung hindi pa namin.
Siguro maganda rin po na para at least malaman din natin kung gaano kalaki problema ng piracy at gaano kalaki ang epekto sa ating ekonomiya. And of course, kasama din po natin ang ating mga networks, GMA. Baka pwede po kayo mag-comment kung ano pong epekto ng piracy sa inyong industriya.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We are actually planning to submit a position paper also on these measures, Your Honor. But basically, we're here to support the measures, and we are thinking it's a very key step in helping the creative industry in minimizing the negative effect of piracy. We have been fighting with illegal sites, Mr. Chair, but it seems that they have been operating with impunity, as mentioned by Mr. Matt Cheatham from the AVIA. Most, if not all, of these pirate sites are operating outside the Philippines. So, with regards to law enforcement, there's really very little that we can do because we have to hire digital forensics to determine where they are operating, and if after determining that, we have to get in touch with the local law enforcement agencies of that country. So you can just imagine the logistics and the difficulties in just pursuing against a certain pirate site. So this site blocking would mean I think would have a huge impact on these the negative effects of this piracy, which is being incurred by the creative industry, Mr. Chair.
Ay, salamat po. Specifically, ano po yung mga instances na naging biktima kayo ng pirate? I mean, what are the specific, ano pong ginagawa ng mga pirata sa content ng GMA?
Mr. Chair, of course, we are in television. We know for a fact, we experienced that even less than an hour from the pre-airing of our television programs, you can already find these programs available in pirate sites. So it negates, it prevents us from sharing or offering it through legitimate streaming or to the legitimate digital streaming sites like Netflix or even on our own YouTube channel, because it's already been made available elsewhere, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Maraming salamat po. Very very insightful. At least alam natin ano yung specifically ano po yung mga ginagawa ng mga pirata. Kinukuha talaga nila, nire-record nila yung show and then nilalabas nila sa mga websites nila, sa mga YouTube sites nila.
Unfortunately, Mr. Chair, it's because of technology, it's so easy to download and to copy content. So they are using the latest technology in
So halos
down-
lahat ng shows ng GMA, halos lahat.
we can find them almost in all the pirate sites, Mr. Even the old
Tapos
programs.
kinukuha nila para maka-generate sila ng foot traffic ng traffic sa YouTube site nila. Doon sila kumikita.
Not only that, Mr. Chair, in fact, some are offering pay-per-view also, similar to what Netflix is doing. And I think this is where malware has been being rampant because they are offering you need to pay using your credit card, so you have to share this information to these frivolous websites or these pirate
Parang
websites.
scamming na yan ang ginagawa nila. Kasi
Related na po dyan yun, Mr.
actually,
Chair.
baka related din yan sa AFASA kasi in effect, financial scamming na rin yun eh.
Yeah, we believe so, Mr. Chair. In fact, if you visit the website of Interpol, they actually mentioned there that these pirate sites are connected with big criminal syndicates which are using this the revenues they're earning from pirate sites in financing their other criminal activities.
Kaya kung hindi natin ipapasa itong batas, kawawa yung mga stakeholders sa ating creative industry. Napakalaki na nawawala sa kanila. Nababawasan ang kita nila, nasisira yung industry. And of course, hindi na natin alam kung saan napupunta yung revenues. Baka napupunta lang sa abroad. So nawawalan din tayo ng income. So clearly, kailangan natin ng ganitong klaseng batas para mabawasan na yung illegal streaming sites. So yes, may comment po bang Ipophil? Is there any would you like to comment on this bill?
Yes, sir. We have already submitted our position paper, but we welcome this development. We have been asking for this for the past years, and we really support. We really need to support the swift passage of this bill, considering the rampant illegal streaming. In fact, we have worked with the different government agencies and especially with GMA. No? They have been using their talents to promote legal streaming. And also we have the support of AVIA, and we get all the information from them. And hopefully, Mr. Chair, we can build our own forensics lab to
Ayun na po.
to monitor.
Or yung DICT.
Kahit po sino. Baka mas marami silang pera, Mr. Chair, so they can. Because
Wait, can I ask the secretary, but na-invite ba natin yung DICT? Invited ba sila? Nandiyan ka pala. Okay. Okay, nandiyan ka pala.
because Mr. Chair, I was able to visit the Korean Copyright Commission, and they have a forensics lab in Korea. So they monitor all the
Pero yung
downloading.
forensics lab nila, puro computer siguro.
Yeah. So siguro po mga 5 lang yata yung tao nila.
Mhm.
And they monitor streaming from cell phones and computers.
Ano pong
So, dalawang-
capability?
Dalawa lang.
Can I ask also DICT now that you're here? Ano pong capability ng DICT in terms of monitoring and takedown powers?
Good morning po, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I am Attorney Jason Soriano from DICT. Mr. Chair, in order to implement a technical blocking of sites, you have to at least own a part of the internet infrastructure. So this means this is why we heavily rely on internet service providers to do the technical blocking for us. In truth, Mr. Chair, the government, any agency in the government cannot implement a technical blocking of the site.
Mm. Ganun ba yan? Anong kailangan nyo para magkaroon kayo ng capability for blocking sites?
Mr. Chair, as I've said, you have to own a part of the internet infrastructure. So the smallest example would be the Wi-Fi routers in our homes or in our offices. As administrator of that internet in our own homes and offices, we can somehow configure and block sites in that micro level.
So basically, under this law, ang mangyayari, utusan nyo na lang yung mga providers na i-block yung site. They will be compelled under the law to block the sites that you identify are streaming pirated. So, yun ang mangyayari since more on more on investigative, but in terms of implementation sila na. In other countries, ganun ba yung practice? Inuutusan lang nila yung provider na i-block yung site.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
In some countries, they have state-owned ISPs.
Okay.
I've heard earlier we have Vietnam and Indonesia as an example by AVIA. In Indonesia and in Vietnam, they have state-owned ISPs. That's why they can directly order the blocking of the sites.
Anong kailangan natin gawin para magkaroon ng state-owned ISP?
Mr. Chair, if I may
ba yan?
just recently the DICT launched the National Fiber Backbone Project for the National Broadband Program. So in the foreseeable future, the government itself could also be an internet service provider. So
But in other countries, meron pa rin private and then meron din ang government.
yes, Mr. Chair, that's right.
Okay. But that's another complete another debate.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
But can I ask for the comment? Baka pwede po mag-comment ang Globe regarding this bill. Do you have any comments about this
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
legislation?
I'm Ariel Tubayan from Globe.
Yes, sir.
Yes, we fully support the bill for three reasons. One, we need to equip the Intellectual Property Office with the necessary tools to prevent and curtail piracy. Since piracy has moved into the realm of the internet, and second, it also deprives the government of the necessary revenues from that access that are forgone from consumption of pirated content. Third, I think as mentioned by our friends from GMA, it also deprives people of livelihood because people in the creative industry will be less likely to produce creative content when their work will be put to naught because of the less revenues or profits that may be derived from piracy. And more importantly, Mr. Chairman, I think it also weakens the moral fiber of the people or of the nation if we become more desensitized in the consumption of pirated content because we think of it as simply getting it for free. But unwittingly, there's no such thing as a freelance because in return, these people who consume pirate content get free malware in return, as mentioned by Avia. So, and it will perpetuate the scamming that we now actually that's prevalent in our society right now. I think as to the capability of the ISPs to implement site blocking, we have been doing this, Mr. Chairman. In fact, in several instances of illegal gambling, where the government asks us to block particular sites, like e-sabong sites, Mr. Chairman, and also the online sexual abuse and exploitation of children, where it's actually a part of the law also, the anti-OSAIC law that was passed in early 2022, Mr. Chairman. So in terms of capability, yes, we have that capability to block pirated sites. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And you're well prepared to implement this legislation if it passes. And wala po kayong concerns. Okay na po kayo sa provisions ng
Yes,
batas.
Mr. Chairman. I think just one concern which may be added, similar to the anti-sexual abuse and or exploitation of children law, we would like that we at least include a provision, a safe harbor provision, where when we enforce lawful orders of the IPO, then we somehow will have an exemption from administrative, civil, and criminal penalties.
Yeah, I think that is fair because you're only implementing.
Yes,
You
Mr.
should
Chair.
not be liable for something that is being ordered by the intellectual property office. I think
Yes.
that's a very valid. So thank you for that suggestion. At importante rin po yung sinabi nyo kanina para malaman ng ating mga kababayan na pag pumasok sila sa mga pirated websites, malaki ang posibilidad na mabibiktima sila ng malware. So delikado talaga itong mga sites at kaya importante po na magkaroon tayo ng takedown power para protektahan ang ating mga kababayan na gumagamit ng social media. So I think that's napaka-importante po na malaman ng ating mga kababayan na kailangan po talaga mag-ingat sa mga illegal sites. So is there anyone who'd like to comment further on this legislation? Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would just like to update the chair that while waiting for the bill to become a law, we already entered into a voluntary site blocking agreement with 4 ISPs, namely Globe, PLDT, Sky Cable, Dito. And we just signed it last year, and we also signed an agreement with the NTC to cover the other ISPs which are not signatories to the MOU with NTC. And we already issued the implementing rules and regulations last year, and it took effect last January 13. And it has been ongoing. We received first complaint, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve it within the week. And our rules contain a safe harbor clause or provision. So that is all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Director General. And at this point, let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the invited resource persons for the proposed amendments of the amendment of RA number 8293. With the approval of my colleagues and in consideration of the time allotted for this hearing, I would like to adjourn our hearing and refer the measures to a technical working group. If you have any additional comments on any of the sections or provisions of the legislative proposals, please email them to the committee and we would gladly welcome and review them. Also, if you have not yet submitted your position papers, kindly submit them no later than May 15. With that, thank you very much, and this session is hereby adjourned.